Welcome. This is Kent Kaufman from the Growth and Leadership Center. Welcome to Growth and Leadership Center's Leadership Online series. And we'll just do a little bit of introduction here over the next minute or two while we wait for people to show up. And would also give an opportunity for us to talk a little bit about our webinar series. As many of you have been with us before, we have an ongoing leadership development program here that we do over the web. And what we like to do is sort of make it high-paced with a lot of material. And from some of the input that we've gotten over the past couple of years, we're actually changing it up slightly this year. We're moving it to a half-hour session. We're going to take bite-sized concepts and topics, and we're going to present them to the audience. So, Laura, say hello to the audience.
Hello. Yeah, so for those that don't know me, let's see, I have been an executive coach here for about 25 years. My background is I was a licensed psychotherapist, and I thought it would be entertaining to work on the problems of regular clients, but then got quickly introduced to working with engineers and coaching executives, and I realized, boy, the problems are pretty entertaining and interesting and challenging for people in leadership and being a boss, and so this is a great topic to talk about.
Great. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kent Kaufman. I'm the CEO here at Growth and Leadership Center, and my background is really more on the engineering and technical side originally. Worked for a number of Silicon Valley companies over the years, and migrated actually into sales and marketing and relatively high-level positions throughout my career, and working all the way from engineering teams to sales and marketing teams. So we double team it. Usually here at Growth and Leadership Center, we combine some of the psychology backgrounds with some of the technical and business backgrounds. And with that, we deliver what we believe is high value to all of our customers. Now, let's talk about these 10 traps to avoid for the newly promoted. Laura, the good news is this. The good news is that you finally have gotten there. You worked really hard. You got promoted. You got recognized. You're feeling really good about where you're at and what you've done. And the bad news is that what got you there is not going to get you where you want to go or even keep you there. And that is the problem with the 10 traps that we're going to talk about today. They may, in fact, not allow you to go to the next level. Okay. So, Laura, getting promoted plays kind of to all of our natural instincts. We get awfully prideful about that, and we get confident, and those traits, and help me talk a little bit about that overconfidence and that sort of thing that you would see in people.
Yes. Well, first of all, we all know that why does anyone get promoted? Usually it's because you're getting things done, right? So that kind of starts a path for people of, I get things done, I'm very task focused, and sometimes I'm good with people too, right? But other times, it's just opportunity. You're in the right place. The boss is knocked out, and now you're going to take over, and you're in the position. And some of us have gotten formally trained in management training, and some people have not. And it's just you've been groomed by your boss, and maybe your boss had bad habits or bad attitudes. And so I think it's always good to review kind of, what are you doing in the management that you're doing?
Right. And, the thing about when you get promoted, it puts all sorts of new challenges in front of you, things that maybe you're not even aware of because you haven't been in this position before. And so effectively, you may have to change a lot of what you've been doing and what you've been successful doing and change that up. And that's hard for people, isn't it?
Right. It's adding on more skills, right? So if it starts out with you got things done, now you have to start looking up and, looking around you and learning more, adding to your skill set.
So today we're gonna hit these 5 traps. We're gonna have a couple of polling questions in between, and almost everybody has been through this where you get promoted and you're feeling good about it, but you start to make some mistakes. And we're going to try and give you some typical mistakes that we've seen with people that we've worked with over the years, and give you some tips and maybe tricks of how you might avoid those, and at least be aware that you might fall into those traps.
Right, and the cost of making these kinds of, having these obstacles come up and not be able to get through them is huge, right? You can lose your reputation, you can, have things go wrong in the department, you can, lose customers, you can lose your influence ability, right, and even get fired.
Right. Okay, so our first trap is to miss the low-hanging fruit. And so the antithesis of that is to capture that low-hanging fruit. And so it's very important when you work and you get into a new position that you try and make a good impression. Everybody wants to do that. And there are a couple sorts of traits that sometimes hold people back. It might be a little bit fear of failure. There might be low risk tolerance. There might be a little bit of a situation where you may not actually seize the moment. And so at the end of the day, you want to make a first big opportunity and nail it. And that doesn't mean hitting the home run. It's really more like hitting that single or a bunt or even a sacrifice fly. Looking around the organization and seeing where can I add the most value the quickest. And it could be building the team. It could be with hitting on a particular project, or maybe you're bringing some additional skills to the table that no one else really has in the group, and you fill in. Or you maybe help out a coworker or a peer. And so all of those things can be done relatively quickly, and the opportunity has to be sort of analyzed and assessed, right? Which brings me to a story that I'd like to tell, and this is a situation that I had to coach through, and had a newly minted VP of an engineering company, one of the Silicon Valley, relatively large company here, and he really was put into this position and had not managed multiple different disciplines within engineering, but he was really deep dive type of person, really wanted to get into the depth and the details. And so it took him a long time to get up to speed. And what started to happen was that decisions weren't getting made, right? And put a little bit of risk-averse kind of personality on top of that, and it started to cause problems. The team was not getting what they needed out of the new leader. He was holding them back. He was not making the decisions, and ultimately what happened was that he had to change the way he did it. He was used to doing it one way, which was sort of more on his shoulders, and he had to change that to a slightly different decision-making model and empowering his own team a little bit more. So he missed the opportunity for some early wins and held up some of the projects. So again, look for those early wins, knock them down, get them. Laura, tell us about trap number 2.
All right, poor navigation of office politics. All right, we all fall prey to this one, right? We walk into these giant companies or these giant families, so to speak, and there are always positive and negative, political currents going on all the time. And I think the big mistake for a lot of people is they want to come in and they want to get a lot done maybe in their own role, right? But without really observing sort of what are the main things the company really cares about from the top. So here are some questions for you to think about. What are the main strategies, the CEO wants to have happen this year? What does the company care about? What does your boss care about? Who are the main players? What leaders, what roles, what groups, which groups have power? Not that you are going to, ignore the ones that don't have power, but just you want to be aware of what you're stepping into, what sensitivities are around you. How much credibility do you have? How much credibility does your boss have? I've coached so many managers that are following their boss into the grave, right? because they're not aware that the boss doesn't have a good reputation. So just not.
And Laura, that's a great point, isn't it? That you can't just rely on your boss.
Yeah, you have to realize what other groups, what other leaders do you need to be listening to? You should be listening to a lot of them cross-functionally. And then what's your reputation and credibility of your group, right? And what are considered, fatal flaws? And we'll talk about fatal flaws later.
Now, Laura, you and I have coached a few clients around these types of situations. Can you recall a situation where maybe somebody was newly put into a position and maybe got caught up in the wrong political maneuvering?
Right. So I had a director that got newly promoted, and they gave her a big division of the business, and it was twice the size that she had ran before, and she had lots of ideas going into what she was going to do and how she was going to run it, and how it was going to come up to speed. But she had a lot of disgust about the other people around her, her peers, and so she became this know-it-all, and she didn't want to listen to the ideas that the person that had been in the role had been, moved into a peer position, and he was trying to give her advice, and she wouldn't listen. So she ended up stepping on a lot of people's toes, partly by being arrogant, not listening, and not building relationships with the peers. So that was a big problem. I lastly want to say on the politics, what really stands out to us with executive coaching is, are you underreacting or are you overreacting? Those are the big no-nos in office politics. Do you see a bunch of things happening and really you should get involved and help out, and you underreact, you're considered weak. And if you're overreacting and you're creating big problems by being upset, that's a big trap too.
Right. So walking in, be balanced, right?
Right.
Okay. Trap number 3, Laura.
Yes, so not making strong talent decisions, right? This is when you're failing to upgrade your poor performers. And boy, I have to say, I probably hear this every single day. Every single day, somebody has inherited someone that their boss, somebody has told them, hey, we transferred this person out of this department. Hey, they're a little slow in their delivery. And they sit on it. Right? Often the hero syndrome comes into place. They want to think that they're the one. I'm thinking of a medical device company right now that they came in and they thought, oh, I can be the one to get this person that hasn't been performing or hasn't been a leader with their managers underneath them, and they're too slow in responding, and you get a poor reputation. You look weak when you don't solve problems.
Right. So you have to give them a fair chance, but that has a very short leash to it, especially when you get in there. I
would say err on the side of a short window of trying to manage this person up.
Great. Okay. Trap number 4 is really a follow-on to yours, Laura, which is failing to build a strong team. And that, the teams that we inherit, if we're managers, we walk in and take over a department. That department may or may not really have been built correctly for what you need to do.
Right.
It may not have all the right skills. It may have, as you pointed out, maybe some of the players aren't as strong as they need to be. And as a new manager, they're looking for you to step in and do something special with the group. And so you've got to lead and inspire. And so when we talk about leading and inspiring, Laura, there's a great book out there that you and I both love. It's called The Extraordinary Leader. Tell us a little bit about that and how that plays to sort of inspiring and building that bigger and better team.
Right. So the book, The Extraordinary Leader by John Sanger, he did a lot of research. He took 7,000 leaders in all size companies, and he got to the high-level leaders, and he surveyed them, and he came up with sort of this information, this research, in that every person gets to a 30% level of, let's say, being a good leader. It only brings you up to 30%, though, if you have strong interpersonal skills plus 3 to 5 strengths. Now, the 3 to 5 strengths is not on the graph, but I'm just telling you this, that the price of entry is you've got to have some talents, right? Whether that's making decisions, or you're good with teams, or you have technical abilities, you're organized, you can think on your feet. You got to start with 3 to 5 strengths, right? That gets you in the door. Now, the other pieces that get you past 30% are these two factions of interpersonal skills and focusing on results. If you only have one, if you have the interpersonal skills plus the 3 to 5 strengths, you're not going to get that far. If you only focus on results and you have 3 to 5 strengths, you're not going to get up to that super leader.
Right.
But if you have both, that's the secret sauce. If you have that combination of you can get things done and focus on results, as well as you're very keen at seeing the interpersonal dynamics that are going on.
Right. And so with that set of skills, as you've pointed out, you start to apply it in terms of building a stronger team, leveraging yourself, right?
That's right. And you don't let a team be broken or fighting for a long period of time. I mean, even 6 months is too long a period of time.
Right. We're talking about really within the first 100 days, you really do have to make that team decisions on moves direction, moves that you have to make, additions to the team that you have to find, and
accountability,
etc.
Right, because that's a big one that a lot of leaders will just trust without verifying.
All right. Number 5, not managing up. Now, this is one of the biggest and hardest things to really recognize, is that you now may be working for a different boss than you were before as you got promoted, or you may be working for the same boss, but he has or she has new expectations of you because now you're at a higher level. They're expecting more out of you. And you may not make that judgment. You may be working off of your own set of assumptions. And so one of the things that we suggest is that when you get into this newly promoted position, one of the first things that you have to do is to set up, number 1, a meeting with your boss to really root out what are the expectations. How do you want to work? And after you set up that meeting, really think about some important questions that you need to ask your boss. For example, on the tactical side, how do you like me to report? How do you like to communicate? Do you like it over email? Do you like it over voicemail? Do you want face-to-face as much as possible? What kind of reports are you expecting, etc., right? And then is there anything, for example, you could ask a question like, is there anything that I should know as far as what additional expectations you have of me, right? What are you expecting at this new level from
right.
me? I was a senior manager. Now I'm a director. What is expected?
Yeah, and about the organization also. The more landscape they can give you.
Exactly. About
where the difficulties are in the company, organization.
Right. So now you're kind of getting aligned with your boss. What are your what are the key priorities? I think they're this based upon what you told me, but I'd really like to know, am I on it? Okay. And then number 3, the third step here is that check in after a few weeks, see how you're doing, make some course corrections, make sure that you're having this interchange with your boss, that you're managing the relationship, you're managing the communication strategy, and you're also essentially being able to see further into the organization.
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that about the cross-functional part, because how many times have we heard someone saying they're doing what their boss says, they're doing what their boss says, hey, ignore that group. Maybe it's regulatory that they're telling them ignore, or whatever group. If your boss is telling you to ignore other groups, you need to think for a minute and look at that, because that is, in other words, there's bad habits all around us, and we need to really keep a 360 viewpoint that all the organizations matter.
Great. So Laura, we're going to do a polling question right now. And while I launch the polling question, maybe you could ask the audience this question.
Right. So out of the first 5 traps that we've talked about, which have you witnessed the most often? 1, failing to build momentum by missing the early win opportunities, or getting suckered into office politics before understanding the invisible currents of the political landscape. 3, failing to upgrade known chronic poor performers before they start to reflect on you. 4, not building a strong team to complement and support your strengths and weaknesses. And 5, not aligning with management expectations.
Okay, so you should see this on your screen. You should be able to vote. So please take a moment and just pick 1 or 2 of these that you've seen before, and just get a little feeling from the audience. Okay, so I am going to close that and share that with the audience. And Laura, what do you think? The top 2 are really the ones that most people are seeing.
Right. So failing to build momentum by missing the early wins. Right. It's like, and the way to look at the early wins is just what are the pain points or problems to be solved immediately.
Right.
Right. And what are the biggest opportunities? What are the most important things, right? So then the second one, getting suckered into office politics, that is so easy and so common, right? You're in a giant family, and
it's subtle.
Hard to be aware of all the things that are going on.
That's
and what's going on behind scenes and how much to pay attention to.
Okay, great. All right. So trap number 6, Laura.
Yeah, so lack of executive presence. So whether you're a first-level manager or whether you're a vice president, this is something to constantly keep in your mind, that you want to think, a level, 2 levels above you. I'm sure you've heard that before, dress the part. But it's sort of, what is executive presence? What does it mean? Of course, you got to look around and observe kind of the norms around you of who are the good leaders and what are they doing, what are they sounding like. A lot of it is having, good composure around conflict, being able to manage conflict. We're going to talk about that next. Having good project management skills, having good meeting management skills, kind of knowing what the highest payoff activities are, right? These are key pieces. Even, I would say, presentations. There's a lot of people that are smart and do well and have a strong team and good at conclusions, but they do a lousy PowerPoint or a lousy presentation.
Right. So an executive presence, it's in some ways company specific. It's a little bit about the culture at the company.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it's also about not just how you look, but how you sound.
Yeah.
Are you saying bright, important,
articulate things? Right. And also, if you're in the higher senior level positions, right, are you thinking like management? Are you being strategic, right? Or are you just heads down, too busy to be able to really cope?
Okay. So, Laura, moving ahead, and I know you love this topic.
Yeah. And
Number 7 is not mastering conflict resolution. Tell us about that.
Yeah, boy, it's going to be challenging to do this one quick because this can be a training for all day. But basically, I'll give you some simple ways to think about this. What do other people say about you about handling conflict? If you had to, get people's feedback on you, would they say you're good at managing feedback? Are you good at giving critical feedback? Are you good at receiving critical feedback? Because those are the 2 huge skills here. And so let's look at this model. We kind of simplify it for you. There's 2 avenues to look at it from. The intent to protect, which is, you're underreacting, or you're defensive and protective, and you want to avoid personal responsibility, and that gives you these negative results down at the bottom. Conflicts, distancing. We have a lot of people that avoid conflict. I'd say most people err on the side of avoiding conflict. They don't want to handle people they don't like directly. Right. That's costly. People view that as weak and ineffectual. So we want to be on the other side, which is called the intent to learn, where you are constantly, staying open, basically staying open in difficult situations. That means you can, assume personal responsibility. You can come into a conflict, and so what would that sound like? Hey, we haven't had the best working relationship, or, we haven't been working, having meetings together, and our groups are, not getting along. And then you want to have lots of positive inquiries. So these are all skill sets, these boxes that I would teach 20, different skills underneath assuming personal responsibility, positive inquiry, all of these boxes, learning about yourself and others, right? And there's some cheat sheets here about, when you're going into a conflict, you want to explore what are the values that you're conflicting on, what are the expectations you're conflicting on, what are the responsibilities that we're missing on. And it's just amazing, like even just this little box of areas to explore, how many managers just never get at this.
Right. And you know, that first conflict when you get promoted, that could set the whole tone for your time in that position, right?
That's right.
So managing that well,
yeah,
is so important.
And showing strength around it. It's not just, oh, am I the good guy? I have a lot of VPs I work with. They want to be the good guy, and it's, oh, boy, right? Either that or they're the tyrant. So ask yourself, do you show in meetings that you can manage conflicts?
Right. Okay. Trap number 8 is sub-optimizing your contribution, not creating enough value in the role. And this is maybe one of the harder things to think about.
Subtle.
It can be very subtle because you're walking in and you may be moving into a position where other people actually know more than you do about that position. They've your boss probably knows a little bit more about it, and maybe the people around it. And so again, we're talking back at those early wins. You need to get those, but you also need to start adding significant value to the role and impact. And this is really important at director and VP level. And so, I have a story about I had a marketing person who essentially was tasked with running some of the events. And one of those events pulled together some of the top IT people from the customer set they had. And what they were looking for, what management was looking for from this marketing manager was, can you tell us trends, etc., but go beyond that? And so this person, this manager, tried very hard to sort of just list the things, right? But there wasn't really a good compilation. There wasn't a good summary. There wasn't an impact statement that came out of that information. It was more just reporting the same old stuff that everybody knew. And so that frustrated people that had to listen to it, because you're telling high-level people pretty much what they know.
Right.
And they're looking for, tell me something I don't know.
That's right. What are the specific things about cloud computing or data storage? What are the specific problems that companies are challenged by in that case?
Exactly. Okay, so add that value, whatever you do.
Yeah, and the question I would lead you on that one is is that what does my role need to, who does my role need to interact with, and what does my role need to be doing? Because sometimes you get into being pissed off at different people and you forget that, wait a minute, you're playing a role, and what does my role need to do? All right.
Okay, Laura, we're going to go into
insufficient communication.
We're going to go into sort of a little bit faster speed because I know everybody wants to make sure that we end close to on time here. So insufficient communication, top, going up, going across, going down. If you haven't developed as part of your 100-day plan a communication strategy for the things that you're working on, the people that you're supporting, then you're gonna miss. You're gonna miss on this one. And so we recommend that 100-day communication plan and strategy. And Laura, finally, just tell us a little bit about number 10, which is what everybody has a hard time really getting and mastering, and that's influence.
Yeah, and we use a model called TOPS, and it looks at what tactics do you need to be using. Do you have the right organizational power? So the T is the tactics, the O is the organizational power that you have. The P is the personal power, and the S is the skills. And basically we look at, are you using the right tactic with the right organizational power, with the right skill to influence? So when you get stuck.
Right. And we work with clients a lot on developing some of those skills that they really haven't used before.
Yeah.
Typically we use the same old stuff over and over again. And especially when they get promoted, new position, higher level, expectations are higher, we are going to have to use more techniques.
Yes, and some of the examples are like what tactics, what I mean by tactics are legitimizing is a tactic, right? Intellectualizing is a tactic. Logical persuading, those are the usual ones, right? But there are other ones like exchanging, bargaining with people, or modeling, or stating. Anyway, these are the tactics that you need to be aware of. What are you using every day when you're trying to influence people?
Okay, Laura, I think we'll launch this polling question, and that will be the conclusion of today's webinar. So let me
Unless you're
launch
staying
that,
around.
unless you can stay for a few more minutes. But we're going to be closing it off here. So if you can, vote. Laura, help them with this one. Which of the these last 5 traps have they seen?
Right. Which ones have you witnessed the most? Failing to address the part, failing to figure out, executive presence, not managing conflicts well, not creating enough value in the role, not communicating up, down, and across, and not building a strong new network.
Okay, so get your votes in because I'm going to close this in 2 seconds.
Wow.
And here we go. I'm going to share that with the audience. Wow, Laura, what do you think about that? We
have the usual, not managing conflicts well and not creating enough value in the role. Right.
Okay. So with that.
Boy, everyone needs feedback.
Yes. So with that, well, I just mentioned to everyone that we do have
several areas.
Yeah, we do have a GLC 100-day coaching program. If you're newly promoted or into a new position, or you've started into management and you'd like to work on your leadership development, your team development, your strategic thinking, etc., please give us a call. And if you'd like to get a copy of these slides, you can email us as well. All right. Well, have a good rest of the day. And Laura, thank you.
Signing off. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.